Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Write an Adventure, our ongoing live stream where we are creating a completely custom campaign in real time so that you can see all the thought processes, decisions, and considerations that go into the creation of a full fledged campaign. I'm RJ Kerr, I'm your host, as always, and today we're going to be working on building out a complex social encounter that we've been working on called the Sea Shanty Siren, is our working title for it. But if you're joining us for the very first time or you're watching this recording having not seen the previous episodes, let me give you a quick update on where we are so that you're not lost. So, as I said, we are creating a campaign, a fully custom campaign in real time, and this includes a unique domain of dread. We have already done a lot of work on this already using our story circle structure to kind of loosely guide the development of our campaign. We have figured out how our characters enter this domain of dread through a portal that opens up on the blood moon. We have figured out what kind of motivations might draw them into this world, might make them decide to engage with this and go through. We have figured out where they land in a shanty town that we're calling Darkport, which sits on the edge of an inland sea. We figured out this inland sea is a big part of our domain of dread, and that it was once the basin of a thriving metropolis, now fallen into ruin and flooded. And that this domain of Tread houses an elemental evil called Ovander, who serves as the Dread Lord of this domain. We've come up with the very first adventure where the characters are kidnapped and briefly enslaved and have to escape their captors, and in doing so, learn about the existence of a long lost artifact that gives the wielder some power over this domain, and figure out that this artifact is probably their best bet for getting out alive. So now we're working on a part of the adventure where the characters are getting proactive, where now they've got some resources and they've got some clues to follow, and now they're out and about exploring the world, looking for this artifact, and through it, their means of escape. And so we're using a node structure style for that, where we have got a whole bunch of clues that we've sort of sprinkled around in the world that lead to different nodes. And each of those nodes is either a mini adventure or an encounter or a complex social encounter or a skill challenge or something along those lines. But each one of them, as the characters work their way through it, they have the opportunity to find other clues that lead to other nodes, and so on and so forth until they arrive. Hmm, excuse me, it's been a long day. Um, until they arrive at the conclusion, the discovery of this artifact, which makes about the midpoint of our adventure, of our campaign. And so now we're working on building out those nodes. And this is really helpful because it gives the players a lot of agency. They've got a lot of choice. They can get out and about in the world and explore and make their own decisions about where to go and what to do next. But it also gives us, as dungeon masters, some structure, something to work with, to write with, so that we have prepared material and we're not having to shoot from the hip continuously. So we're going to dive in with our Sea Shanty Siren here momentarily. But before we do, let me give you a quick reminder that this is an interactive stream. So as you have thoughts, ideas, opinions, comments, suggestions, or questions, please jump into the chat and drop them in there. I'd love to hear from everybody. You guys come up with some really cool stuff, and you bring up great questions and great talking points. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will begin. So we have only been working on this one for a couple sessions now, and we've already done a fair amount here. And this isn't to say a full-fledged mini adventure, right? This is a complex social encounter, and so there's a lot more. I'll say it's a little more loosey goosey than say like a 5-room dungeon or a 5-scene dungeon or what have you. And so really we're building out the personalities of the people involved, because those are going to be the biggest components of this. Is there's going to be a lot of role playing, and so we want to set ourselves up as the DMs to be as successful as possible. Oh, excuse me. While we are playing this, so that we have as much distinction between the characters uh, as we uh, uh, as we can possibly have, to make it really easy to kind of swap back and forth between them as the DM. So we are working on this adventure where we have this siren who's a predatory creature by nature, and that she lures beings to her toll to feast on them. However, recently she's developed a problem that she needs help with, and that the siren needs to steal someone else's voice to replace her own stolen voice and wants the characters to do this for her effectively. And that she has, selected a few people that have the kind of voice that she's looking for. And the characters are motivated to do some of this to help her with this, as disagreeable as it is, because she has information that can help lead them towards this artifact of power. And so this is designed to be kind of a moral quandary kind of deal here. Are the characters going to engage with this? Are the are they going to put their own morality aside and trying to help out the siren for the results for the clues they might get, or are they going to put this on hold and make this a last resort that they're only going to interact with the siren if they have nowhere else to go? Um, and so we have built out some of the personality of the siren here. So we've got, her immediate objective, her overall ambition, a couple of values for her, and a secret. All things that the characters can learn and leverage as part of their negotiations. We have started working on a few of the potential victims, the people whose voices she wants to take, um, and and built out some of their personalities. We're still working on building out some of their personalities and fleshing them out. We've got a lot of good pieces for them already. We did, however, last time come up with the idea that to make this more interesting, the voice has to be given up willingly. It can't be stolen. And so the characters are in a position where they're going to have to convince somebody to give up their voice. And that gives us a cool dynamic and a lot of levers here for them to play with and some back and forth to push with, so that we can have these really dynamic social encounters that aren't just, a single persuasion check and congrats, you succeed, or oh, too bad you fail. But we have a lot more interaction and discussion here and many more strategies that can be used. So we settled on there being a bard, a priest, and a widow. And we have worked on giving them each kind of a dilemma here, where they've got something they want, something that they have a reason to sell their voice for, but there's a downside for each of them by giving up their voice. A lasting effect that's more of just a hindrance to communication, but something that actually affects their overall desires in the world. And so it's up to our characters to overcome those and convince one of them to give up their voice. So we're going to continue working on some of their values, secrets, and what have you, their personality traits, and we are then, if we get some more time after we finish with that, we're probably going to continue working on our complication or twist here, because that's the next big thing to work on in terms of figuring out exactly how the what repercussions can befall our characters for poor performance, or stumbling through this process. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got our bard almost done personality wise. We've got an objective, we've got ambition, we've got value. We need a second value, and we have a secret for them. So like I've said before, I like to come up with values that have the potential to come into conflict with each other, simply because it makes for more interesting decisions when you can pit one core value against another. So we'll have to think about what we can do for him. We said he's a struggling bard, dreams of nothing more than his songs outliving him, yet he has been unable to make a lasting impression. The siren can ensure his songs are sung for thousands of years. However, giving up his voice means he'll never be able to craft new songs or sing again, forcing him to choose between the love of his craft and his desire for legacy. Oh, well, that answers our question of the other value for us now, doesn't it? Because we've already kind of solved that. His first one is vanity, and that comes down to his desire for legacy and his desire to be remembered. And to be adored. And that means his other value should be art. It should be the love of his craft. So we're going to say the bard loves his craft above all other things. Great. And you'll notice that we've kind of used that above, loves this, wants this, above all other things. We've used this multiple times throughout here. It's I do that intentionally. It's not intended to be repetitive, but is intended to create potential conflict. Because when there's two things that you want more than anything else in the world, well, then which one of them do you want more than the other thing? It forces an interesting choice when they come into conflict. Um, and this is a good lesson for us too. Reviewing some of the stuff we put in here with fresh eyes sometimes reveals things that we already had built out that we just hadn't seen before. So let's move on to our priest. Dilemma. The priest's village has suffered from poor fishing over the last few months. Many are on the verge of starvation. The siren can replenish the fisheries in exchange for the priest's voice. However, giving up his voice will mean he's no longer able to spread the word of his deity, uh, meaning he'll save some lives, but could lose some souls in the process. All right. So we've figured out his value here being community, his unquenchable urge to protect his congregation. We might say we've kind of covered the bit about his deity through his ambition here, although we might put piety in here. Um, his devotion to his deity. Let's do that to start, unless we can come up with something else. We can always edit it later, but um, and I know that piety seems, I mean, I don't know. For me, piety in a priest seems a little bit of a cop out, but um, these characters don't have to be surprising at every angle. There can be some things that follow rather logically, and by putting some of that in here, it's going to let our characters interact with these NPCs a little more naturally to some degree because they're going to make some of these assumptions. They're going to assume a priest cares about their deity, um, and while it's very interesting if we find out later on that they don't, it is it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea to have them to lean into that initial assumption and give the character something to bite on at first. But we'll have to think about it. I'm going to put piety in here just to start, and then we can come back and come up with something else if we really need to. Um, the priest feels called to spread the word of his deity and create converts. Let's see here. Ben Elder got a comment already. Terrific. Says maybe the priest once served as a masked inquisition type thing. When he first came to the village, they worshipped Evander, and he went a bit overboard, stamping out heresy. Became priest for penance. Ooh, that's a cool secret. Oh, yeah. That would be a cool one. And it would be something that would conflict with his value of community here, right? Because it would risk him being ostracized if the community found out that he was responsible for these what is it, inquisitorial sort of actions. So I like that a lot for a secret. Let's go with that. Okay, so we're going to say priest was once a masked inquisitor, committing countless atrocities. There we go. Atrocities in the name of his faith. However, he eventually repented and became a priest as penance. I always misspell that word. Penance. There we go. Out of penance. He's terrified his community will discover his bloody past. All right. Um, Ben Elder says, yeah, maybe he has his old Inquisitor gear buried in his basement, John Wick style, where it's like underneath all the, I mean, probably wouldn't be under concrete in this case, but underneath the floorboards, and he can just break it out. It's got the old box of stuff. And Ben Elder says, I was a different man in those days. Yeah, absolutely. Which creates a whole nother um, uh, that's it creates a whole nother sort of dynamic here. That how far will he go to keep from being exposed? If he's got this particular set of skills, does he try to take on the party at some point? If they press him too much, does he try to do them in and kill them to keep his secret? Um, I mean, that's not out of touch with his devotion to community if he risks losing that. So again, it creates interesting questions for them. Jonathan Ross says, "Do we need to go back to the initial pages and find the faith he now follows for flavor? Does it matter?" Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think that we do. I think we need to have a clear idea of what sort of faith he is promoting here, and because I think it's gonna matter in the role play. At the very minimum, the characters are gonna want to know, and if we just kind of come up with something on the fly, I don't think it's gonna be as satisfying. And then Mr. Mech says, "Oh, him being exposed is a nice touch." Yeah, thank you very much. Um, you know, the cool thing about secrets is that and from role play terms, is that when the characters find them out, now they have something that they can blackmail and extort with, which aren't pretty things in real life, but they can be fun to do in game. And so, giving them those dark secrets makes for cool things for them to discover, and as they investigate these characters, because they may or may not, right? Like, the you know, the I lost my train of thought for a second there. Yeah, so they may just kind of approach these characters and have a straightforward dialogue and try it out, but they also might get smart and try to research, their targets to try to learn something about them, and kind of discover maybe some of the dirt on them, things that they can use, things that they like or don't like, what's important to them, that kind of stuff. They may really dig into that, and having knowing little things like these secrets leads to things like, oh yeah, he probably has his old Inquisitor gear buried in his basement somewhere. That's something they can find and learn, and that kind of deal. Um, and so it gives you some things that you can add depth as needed, pretty much on the spot, because you already have an understanding of their background and what they're hiding. And then Ben Elder says, yes, maybe a fail to convince results in a retired high level cleric fight or paladin. Yeah, and I can almost imagine him being like a trickery domain cleric. Like, one, they wouldn't expect that, but two, yeah, and Van Hiller says I saw him kill three ghouls in a cave with a quill. I love the John Wick reference. Uh, yeah, so but yeah, yeah. So I can almost imagine him being kind of like a trickery domain sort of cleric, where like it's not as thrilling of a fight if he just like erupts and takes them on. One man against all three of them, or all four of them, or whatever. Because the action economy of the game is going to overwhelm him. Um, but he could but we could have him try to ambush the characters at some point, try to even the playing field, maybe come at them at night during their long rest and interrupt it when they're all spent from the day and they've used up all their resources before they get a chance to get spell slots back and things like that. We could give him a fair amount of guile, and make him a little deadlier that way if we need to. Mr. Mech says, "Are there certain religions that put importance on someone that has a commanding voice? Giving up his voice would have his order see him as less than." Um, there aren't necessarily. See, that's a tricky question because it depends on the campaign setting that we're kind of basing this off of, and we're not really using one. We're not trying to um, necessarily lean into there being this being Forgotten Realms or being Greyhawk or what have you, because you might be able to answer that question a couple different ways depending on the campaign setting you have. So, for example, Forgotten Realms, um, you know, while it's not explicitly stated, um, uh, there is, you know, there's, for example, the god of, Torm, right, who's a deity of duty uh, and and purpose in the Forgotten Realms, and so maybe a commanding voice is important in that faith among his priests. Same thing might be true of Helm, which is a deity of protection in the Forgotten Realms. So you could find something that kind of lines up with there, and then create this culture of having the importance of a commanding voice within that. And so yeah, it's you know it's something that you could sort of layer onto a lot of existing pantheons, or you could just create your own, make one up. Um, Jonathan Frost asks here, are we expanding the list of religions available here instead? And like a trickery deity. And to that, I think it kind of blends with what you're asking here, Mr. Max, is that, um, when in doubt, make up your own. Just because the deity doesn't exist in a codified pantheon, like the Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in that world at all. I mean, cults exist in these places. It could be a small faith. It could be a burgeoning community that is trying to become a full blown religion. I like to kind of adhere to the idea when it comes to deities in things like D&D, that they feed off of faith, and that is uh, entity is is their faithful dwindle and they get worshipped less, they get weaker and weaker and eventually kind of fade away, if not die completely. um, Whereas as a nascent deity can be birthed with enough faith. I mean, we have precedent for that. You've got things like the Kuo-toa, which can create deities through their faith alone. Um, so why wouldn't it be possible for there be enough, humanoids in a civilized community to believe in something to create a deity that gives it power? Um, you know, there is, there's other adventures where deities have been created and birthed through rituals and rites and that sort of thing. Um, and then we have things like Jericho in the Forgotten Realms again, who was a deity of death, who people stopped worshiping, and he faded away, gave up his power. If you're familiar with the lore of the Baldur's Gate 3 game, that plays a part there. Um, so there's certainly plenty of context to make up your own stuff. And for this, I would say that we do, because we're not really worried about it layering with any particular pantheon. We want to have um, a deity in here that is probably unique to this, and so it works with anybody. And again, you see that in some of the other domains of dread. Curse of Strahd has, um, the Night Mother in it, which we could, reskin and say is the Raven Queen if we wanted to. You know, but the deities that are there are very kind of loose and allow you to kind of modify them as you need to, but they're unique to that domain of dread. They don't exist in other pantheons. And so I think we could do something like that here. And let's start with that. Let's start fleshing some of this out. We're going to say deity. And we're going to say trickery, domain, question mark, potential, new deity. And we will explore that. Ben Elder says, how about the gray lady, a shadowy but angelic figure who guides the lost home and shields the faithful with mists and confusion? Her clerics wield fog and shadows to confuse their enemies. That's very cool. That's very cool. I yeah, I created a similar deity for an adventure in the Shadowfell uh, that that I ran at one point. Only I was it was a deity of fortune telling, and she was the Lady Grey instead of the Grey Lady, and so she did a lot of tea reading. But I like the combination here of mists and yeah, and the guides would be I think is especially valuable here, especially since we have such an oceanic sort of lean here with the sea, the inland sea, and what have you. That mariners would be looking for um, guides in the fog and things like that. So yeah, let's go with the Gray Lady. Let's do that. I like that. Very flavorful, Ben. Very cool. So I'm going to cut that. We're going to put parentheses around here so we don't forget that it's a trickery domain. We're going to say deity, the Gray Lady. Yeah, the Gray Lady. A shadowy but benevolent figure who guides the lost home and shields faithful with mist, say with confusing mists. Let's see, her clerics wield fog and shadow. Cool. Yeah, so we'll do that. I kind of imagine that. Oh, hold on. I'm reading some comments here, and then Ben is a step ahead of me. First of all, let's jump back to Jonathan Frost. So, Jonathan says, "Well, we have the whole mists idea of being pulled into the domain as well. It's a perfect match. Yeah, completely agree with that." And Ben says, "Thanks, guys. Her churches double as lighthouses, maybe, and benevolent will-o'-the-wisps are a common sight in the homes and gardens of her flock." Yes, I wasn't gonna say lighthouses or will-o'-the-wisps, which I think is a super cool idea. We're definitely doing that. I was gonna say what if she appears kind of as a banshee-like figure or a ghostly-like figure, kind of thing. And again, I was thinking along the lines of I was thinking along the lines of like haunted ships and haunted shores and that sort of deal. But haunted lighthouses work as well, and are frankly cooler. We're definitely doing lighthouses. Okay, so her churches, let's say her temples, serve as lighthouses and benevolent will-o'-the-wisps. Wisps. Appear in the gardens of the faithful. Will-o'-the-wisps. Okay, appear in the garden of the faithful. She appears in visions as a ghostly figure akin to a banshee. And her symbol, as has been declared in the chat, her symbol is a lantern, which I love as well. Let's add this on. That's a lantern, not there. Let's add this, and let's say her priests carry lanterns on long poles, day and night, to symbolize that they are guides through the fog. Yeah, okay. And let's see here. Yep, so Jonathan Frost came with the lanterns. Mr. Max says, in brightest day and blackest night, no missing shall escape her sight. Very cool. I like that. We're going to add that in here too. That's part of the Green Lantern Corps motto, isn't it? Or it's an adaptation of that, isn't it? Okay. Mr. Max says, it is good, sir. I like it. I like it. Nice. Excellent. Okay. Terrific. So, in a matter of minutes here, we have created a, well enough rendered, religion in this world that it's now playable. We've got something that we could toss out in front of our characters and build off of as we go. But we have enough information about it to make it feel real and vibrant in this world. And that took what, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something along those lines to knock out. Fantastic. It's really cool, and the ideas flow. And you guys came up with some terrific ideas for this. I claim no responsibility for that, Deity. That was all you. That's super cool. Super, super cool. I love it. All right, everybody. So we are at our time. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will pick up again on Monday at our regular time. If you enjoyed this stream, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All that stuff helps the stream get noticed and grow and gets more people in on our channel here. Keeps the chat dynamic and keeps fresh ideas coming in. If you want to jump into one of my tables, please check me out at startplaying.games/gm/RJKerr. You can see all my posted tables there currently, and you can also request custom games. So if you want to run a homebrew adventure run for you and your friends, you can sign up there. If you want to do a one-shot or something along those lines, you can send requests in for that as well. Open to all those kinds of suggestions. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Talk to you soon. Bye.